I'm just going to go back to the kids can't lose their mother. Whatever I would do for them, I would do for her. Kids are our greatest source of strength, also our greatest vulnerability. There was no other option. This is what needed to happen. That's it. It's just the kids can't lose their mother.
Hi, I'm Amory Kibler, and this is The Space Between. I'm a cancer survivor and a mom. And while those roles don't define me, they have shaped who I am. I created this space to share honest stories, expert insights, and meaningful support for families navigating life with cancer. If you're balancing treatment, caregiving, parenting, or just trying to hold it all together, you are not alone. This is your space to connect, to heal, and to feel seen, and I'm so glad that you're here. Get ready. Today's episode is a powerful one and a reminder that family doesn't always look like we expect it to. I'm so excited to welcome back my dear friend, Gina Lamanna, the founder of the Fondle Project, breast cancer survivor, alongside her ex-husband, Steve Binder. They were going through a divorce when Gina received her diagnosis, and together they share what it really looks like to co-parent through one of the hardest chapters of life, navigating a cancer diagnosis, treatment, and healing, all the while raising their children and redefining their relationship as co-parents. Let's get into it.
I do trust him with my life wholeheartedly on so many levels that I know that I could trust him to, walk along with me on this journey for sure. Regardless of what we were going through, we were newly separated, I think, about a year. I was officially diagnosed on New Year's Eve.
But you weren't even officially divorced, right?
We were not officially divorced. And I was actually in a new relationship at the time. I was in a long distance relationship by coastal LA, New York. And I was actually with my then boyfriend in Vermont celebrating New Year's. I just left Steven and the girls because they were in Chicago. So we were not divorced, and that's a whole nother thing. But we didn't rush to get divorced because after I was diagnosed, I was on his health insurance, which he had an incredible policy with the Writers Guild. So we kind of kept me on there until, about 4 years, right?
Until we sort of had to, just other circumstances dictated, just made more sense to do it. But otherwise, we were just going to go along with that.
Wow, so it's actually lucky that you weren't officially divorced when you got diagnosed.
Yeah.
Financially lucky, but...
Financially lucky, right?
Yeah.
And Steve, what were you thinking at this time? How were you feeling?
Well, there was a lot of feelings, shock. There was one phrase that just kept going through my mind, which is that the kids can't lose their mother. That just kind of kept, sort of full stop, underline, bold, flashing lights like that. That just kept flashing in my head, and then you do whatever you need to do to make that happen.
So Steve, you were actually the one to give Gina the news to confirm her diagnosis. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, she was in Vermont with her boyfriend, and I got a call from our doctor, and he had gotten results from this second and third opinion that we had gotten and said it was cancer. And my first thought was, can I wait to tell her? How serious is this? Because the last time he came into town, I got the flu and was so sick I couldn't even stand, and I ruined their vacation. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to ruin another vacation, even though I'm not the one who, created the cancer. But that was the first thing that popped in my head. And he said, yeah, you got a couple days. And then I just thought about it, and I was like, I don't know, the kids can't lose their mother. I don't know that I want to wait a couple days. Also, Gina will kill me when she comes back if I waited a couple days. So I just picked up the phone and I called her, and I think the first thing I might have asked you, Gina, was, are you driving? Because last time when you got just a suspicious report, you almost drove off the road. And I think as soon as I said that, I don't want to speak for you, Gina, but I think as soon as I said that, she knew something good wasn't going to come next.
Yes, you called to tell me you have some good news and some bad news. And obviously I requested the bad news first. We do not remember what the good news was at the time, but there, again, going back to why I had him call me, is my annual screenings, my mammograms and ultrasounds were clear, but I kept feeling something, and I went back to my doctor. We did another ultrasound. She told me to come back in 6 months because she felt it, but she didn't see anything on the second ultrasound. And then I asked her, I said, I need some reassurance. What would be my next step? And she said, an MRI, but your insurance won't cover it because of the various reasons. Everything was normal. So fast forward to me getting an MRI. And then when I had the MRI, I got the phone call while I was driving with my dad. It was around Thanksgiving. My dad was in town and we're on our way to go get my daughters. My doctor called to tell me that they had found suspicious findings. I literally almost went off the road. I just freaked out and just lost myself. And obviously I didn't want to rinse and repeat of that. So when we went forward with the second and third opinion, I gave my doctors the permission, please call Steven, my ex-husband, with the results so he knows that I'm safe, I'm not driving, I'm not with my daughters, like I'm going to be in a safe space where he can deliver the unfortunate news. So that is why Steven was the one that made the call.
Hey, Gina, I don't know if I ever told you this, but those suspicious findings, I did like super deep PubMed dive on those suspicious findings. And what I found was 50% of the time it was invasive breast cancer. And I kept that to myself. I figured, why alarm anyone before you needed to be alarmed? Because like she said, she almost drove off the road. But I had a sinking feeling even back then. 50% is not a good place to be.
It sounds like to me, even though you guys were getting divorced, Steven, you really were thinking about Gina first, not only worried about her running off the road, of course, but you're thinking about her vacation with her boyfriend and her feelings in every which way, which I think is something just so rare that you're going to find in a couple that's going through something like this. It's pretty amazing.
Well, that's the kind version. You could also say that I was thinking of myself, but boy, was I going to get into trouble. So, it's 50-50.
Well, Gina, you've mentioned to me many ways that Steve really showed up for you. Could you share some examples of some things that stick with you that could be helpful for another couple that's going through something like this?
Of course. Well, Steven is notoriously known for keeping files and medical records very organized. So he always had all of my lab reports and mammogram screenings and whatnot very organized. So that was a great help when we needed him at a quickly. He is great with research. He'll go down that rabbit hole and research various things. We would get a result from a doctor and he would be, harvesting PubMed. So he's my research guy, but most importantly, he showed up to pretty much every doctor's appointment. If he could not physically be there, he was there via FaceTime. He helped me with lists of questions that I should, because as you know, when you are confirmed or faced with a cancer diagnosis, there's so much information. And I'm in my mind thinking, am I going to die? I got kids, right? Anyway, but he was really great. Just being there. Questions and taking in all the information, but also by my bedside, one of the first persons there when I would wake up, just knowing that I was okay. And he was the guy that, when you go into surgery, when you go under, there's so many risks, you just never know. And I know that God forbid if something went south, he'd be the guy and know exactly what to do. He would act fast, get me the best possible care. Like he would have my back. Whereas some ex-husbands or ex-wives would be like, pull the plug or, I don't care. So he really showed up. He showed up in so many ways. He showed up financially too. He helped me quite a bit financially because I had to take off from work, taking care of the kids, making sure the kids were safe, having the conversations, the very real conversations with our little girls. And his sense of humor on occasion, was super helpful.
Then keep going.
No, but I mean, it was remarkable considering, when we separated, it wasn't horrific. It was amicable, but of course there's always great love between us, but there's also a little bit of, sadness because I don't want to say we broke up our family because we're still a family unit, but our family was broken, and you just don't know how one would react to show up for you, but he showed up in all the ways. And even like my doctors and my surgeons were like, they had never seen anything like it. Like, your ex-husband is here. Wait, your ex-husband is joining us on this meeting. Your ex-husband's on your bedside. Like, they've never seen anything like it. And they just found it to be so heartwarming and amazing and just like, wow. And he continues to be very supportive and my rock and just, he's awesome.
You're so lucky to have him through this.
Concur.
I'm very lucky for sure. And so are my daughters. You know, we're a very close family, but he's been there for our kids. Cause our youngest was what, 3.5. So she didn't really quite know what was going on. I think, you know, when I couldn't pick her up post mastectomy, I think that was kind of like, what? There was a disconnect there. Like, why can't mommy hold me? Like I'm in a recliner. I can't lift my arms. So that was a bit confusing, but our oldest was about 8. And at the time, her teacher had just gone through it. And she actually had the same doctor and the same plastic surgeon medical team. So I think at the time that really helped our oldest because she got to witness and observe her teacher feeling good, showing up to work, to work, to teach. And this particular teacher surviving. Yes. And she kind of took Ava under her wing and was like, your mom's going to be okay. And kind of, look, I'm thriving. And she has the best medical care. You know, I had that care. I had that doctor. So I think that helped Ava a bit. And now that Ava is older, I say I probably get a question regarding breast health and my breast cancer every other month for my oldest daughter. Because I do think in the back of her mind, she's got a little bit of anxiety and worry because she is 16. Her grandmother had it. I had it, you know, but I'm trying to gently teach her to become confident and empower her to know her body and pay attention to all the changes that her body's going to go through as she enters adolescence, you know.
And of course, you've been communicating with her so much. So like she's doing her own exams and like you've got her at an early age understanding how important that is, Gina. So Stephen, how were you doing all of this? Even though you guys had an amicable divorce, it still must have been really so hard for you. What do you think was the most challenging part of being able to show up for Gina like this at such a difficult time?
You know, I'm just going to go back to the kids can't lose their mother. So, you know, whatever I would do for them, I would do for her. And, you know, kids are our greatest source of strength, also our greatest vulnerability. But I think it was that. I don't think there was a decision. There was no other option. This is what needed to happen. That's it. It's just the kids can't lose their mother. The end.
Is there anything that you wish you knew before going into this journey, maybe that someone who had been through a similar situation could have shared with you that you feel like would have helped you to feel more prepared?
Yeah, you know, it's ultimately this comes down to medical choices. That's what do we do? What are our chances? I know Gina had said that I'm medically organized. I got paper statements of my blood tests and things prior to this. It was really this process that led me to get so organized. I wish someone earlier had said, and I do this now for myself, I do it for the kids. I get copies of every medical record. I wish someone had said this to me at every doctor visit I went to, so you just can collect them over the years should you need them. Get every medical record you have, get the paper report. If you get an MRI, ask for the disc and get the disc. You can back it up on your computer and throw the disc away. I wish someone had told me that, because when you're making medical decisions, you need to collect this information. And it was very burdensome to go track down this stuff, especially because every single report or every single MRI, you wonder, is this the bit of information that's going to save her life? So it would have been great to have that upfront, ongoing, just as life went on. It's probably less important now because there's a lot of more digital records, but I wouldn't hang my hat on that for sure, especially if you're traveling to another state or out of state for medical advice, just to have everything and present it all to the doctor, because you have a limited amount of time with them. And I used to say to Gina, I said, I don't want this guy, if I have to drive 4 hours to go pick up this and wait for this report, I don't want to be sitting there and have the doctor go, oh yeah, I don't have your MRI. Don't worry about that. I'll get that later. Like, I don't even want 10 seconds of his time spent wondering where the information is. I think that's the biggest thing. I wish someone had told me, was to just be prepared, because you never know. And it was the most time consuming. And then, you know, it's time away from work, which is stressful. It's then time away from your family, which is stressful. And time is sort of everything. That's really what we're talking about, is maximizing our time on the planet.
I teamed up with Stacey Eagle and Elise Ryan to create Sea Waves of Support, healing selenite bracelet sets. You keep one and gift the other to someone facing cancer or life's challenges, a powerful reminder they're not alone. Learn more at seawavesofsupport.com. It's true. You do feel like you're in their office and you've got a limited amount of time and you have to have every single question that you want to ask them and all of your information there. And then like your next appointment, and it might not be for, another month. So if you don't have everything all together, and like when you're going through it, Gina, I'm sure you felt like this. I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't like keep track of my keys. I was just so overwhelmed and scatterbrained, and like I couldn't even come up with a question to ask. So having a partner to help to organize all of that, I'm sure was just so important. I want to talk about how you two were co-parenting during this time with your two girls. What was that like for you two? What was that season like for your girls? How did you support them emotionally? Stephen, were you talking to them separately about what Gina was going through, or did you co-parent together?
I mean, both, because we had custody at different times with them. I don't know if anyone can understand this diagnosis when they get it, much less a child who thinks everyone's going to live forever. So I'm not sure how much kids really can understand it, even if you are completely honest with them. We had medical reasons to be positive. I focused on those with the kids. I think, Gina, you reminded me, we talked about, this is going to sound strange, there's the good cancer and the bad cancer, the good cancer being the kind that you have and you deal with and it sucks and then it's over. And then there's the bad one where you have it and then, you're at a funeral. We distinguish those. And part of the reason we did that is because we knew they were going to go into the world and they were going to hear from their friends as soon as cancer came out. Oh, my grandma had cancer, she died. They were going to hear a lot of death cancer stories. So we wanted to segregate those and let them know that mommy had the good cancer. But I think, there's only so much a kid can understand about this, especially their parents' mortality. So I don't know if being completely honest lands on them the way it lands on an adult. And we just focus on what we were doing, what was going to happen. If they had questions, we answer them. But I don't know that we went too deep into things with our 4.5-year-old. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we didn't. Ava, our oldest, we had more intentional conversations. And now, again, like as I mentioned, Ava and I will talk here and there, especially when October rolls around. Ava she's more curious and wants to know more. And, now since I've launched the Fondle Project too, she's a little bit more in tune, where Allie's, she's almost 13. She doesn't quite get it just yet. Look, she sees me every day, like taking care of her. Like, it was very important for me when I was diagnosed, even though I was scared to death, to wake up every day and show up for those girls. They hate it when I say this, but just power through it. Like, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to make them their breakfast, get them ready for school. I was in a very fortunate position. As you know, I had the by appointment studio for many years. So it gave me the flexibility to drop off my kids every day and pick them up every day, which was dreamy for me, which was a luxury, I know, and just be their mom. Still to this point, they see me cooking and cleaning and baking and doing laundry and working and dating and traveling, like living. It's so important that they see that their mom is living, that, because if they see me, even the days where I have bad days, sometimes like I am not doing well, I'm hormonal, or I'm having a gnarly headache, I just need to retreat to my bedroom and just chill. But it's very important for me knowing that they know about my diagnosis, that I wake up and I'm positive and I'm living and I'm thriving, because I don't want them, especially my oldest, like to see me in a way. And I understand that, I only can control so much, but I want them to see me, living.
Yeah. And you're very honest with your girls about what you're feeling, what you're going through. And I've been there when you're having conversations around the table and talking to them about how you're feeling and what's happening. And I feel like for me, when I was going through my cancer story, doing things with my girls, like still showing up for the school activities and doing those things was kind of like the anchor in the healing process, and like being able to be with them and do like the normal things really made a big difference in helping me to be able to feel like I was not just surviving, but thriving and healing. Like the relationships we have with the people that we care about are so healing during that time. Looking back, what do you think is something that has really made this work between the two of you as this like unconventional relationship? Stephen, like calling you and you're with your new partner and updating you and all those things, because it really does feel like you have such a mutual respect for each other. But in the realm of divorces, it could be a little unconventional in a great way.
Even without a cancer diagnosis, you're co-parenting. It means continuing to be parents, even when the relationship has ended or crashed and burned or exploded. However it goes out, you're still the parents. And I think the one thing we had above all else, even when we were having marital difficulties, is that we both loved being parents, and we were in natural agreement on almost all aspects of that. We saw parenting in the same way, and we had great kids, and we loved the kids. And I think that carried us through some rough times in a marriage that maybe lasted longer than it would have if there wasn't the kids around, and not in a stress tenuous way. We just really loved being around the kids. And once you have, 2 kids, that's 99% of what you're doing anyway. And then when our marriage ended, we continued to be parents. I mean, it really comes down to that. We just continue to be parents. I think some people maybe have this idea that now that they're divorced, I don't know, their responsibilities is maybe they didn't like parenting as much, or it was stressful for them, and maybe they take out some of that divorce angst on the children. I don't know what goes through people's minds. But on the other side of the coin is, if you're a parent whether you're divorced or not. That means taking care of your children. It means taking care of your children's, the other most important person in your children's life. You don't lose that connection just because you're divorced. And so when the cancer diagnosis came along, I think it just solidified, rubber met the road, I guess is a way to put it. And okay, do I really believe this thing that I'm doing? Because now we're both going to be tested. And we did. The kids aren't weapons. They're not baseball bats to smack each other around with because you're angry at the other parent. And I think if you could not do that, and if you could remember that you're a parent first, all these other things flow out from that, aside from just not being an asshole.
Yeah. It's about putting your children first and allowing that to be your compass when you're going through something like that, right? You have to put down the ego, have empathy and obviously great respect. But as I mentioned many times to you and in the past, he really was you, Steve, he was a true partner in my healing, still to this present day.
Okay, last question. Do you think that this experience has changed your relationship at all?
I'm going to let you go first on that one.
I do. I think it's definitely made us stronger. I mean, I don't love him it's not that I love him more. I've always loved Steve. We just are, being husband and wife, we clash quite a bit. I think our relationship is much stronger because we do, like Stephen said, like our girls are everything to us, and we're really great parents. Sometimes we don't agree on some of the, parental things, but majority of the time we're very aligned. And I think that the love that we have for one another, our daughters, our family unit, and that into the end, right? Like if I'm his rock, God forbid anything happens to him. Like I care about him so much and his health and his well-being and all of that. So I think we're better friends.
I was going to say and I'm speaking for myself, but I think it probably applies to Gina too. You're getting divorced, and it's, you're married to someone, they're your life partner and theoretically someone you trust, with everything. And then as you're getting divorced, that gets broken. And do I trust this person? How much do I trust this person? What's my relationship going to be like with this person? Like all of that's in flux. You don't know where you're going to land. And I think we would have landed in a good place anyway. I don't know how much longer it might have taken to land in that place, but this was sort of a immediate. It's funny, Gina, it felt immediate to me. It was a year, but it felt like very quickly. I had just moved out. We had just gotten settled. custody and we were getting used to our new life. And suddenly it was like, like being in the Millennium Falcon going at light speed into the future with this person. And it demonstrated almost immediately that we were going to be there for each other when the shit hit the fan, and that the support has no limits, because we've already tested the bottom. I don't know what else there is beyond this. And so I think it accelerated what would have been a natural progression to landing in a good place. And I think demonstrated that the good place is as good as it gets, as good as you could hope, as good as you could want or expect from an ex.
So one thing that I wanted to bring up here that we didn't get a chance to talk about is how we can support our partners during a cancer diagnosis.
Yes, I think that's one thing that is not discussed often, and one thing that we tend to forget while we're in the midst of a cancer diagnosis. And I bring this up because I remember, I had 6 surgeries. I think it was my second surgery. I think it was for my double mastectomy. Stephen was there, and so was my best friend. And she had shared with me while I was under the knife that she was one of the first times she had seen him since we had separated. So it was quite some time. She asked him, "How are you doing?" And he had shared with her, he's like, he doesn't have anybody. Guys don't really have these conversations. I think some men, shouldn't say all men, are not very in touch with their feelings, or, they don't really want to show their vulnerability and whatnot. But she had asked him, like, "How are you doing through all of this?" And he basically was like, he's just trying to survive himself and take care of the children. But he was like, "I don't have the support system like Gina does. I don't have the girlfriends in the community. Like, I don't have anyone to talk to." And that really hit me when she told me this. So I made the intention to check in with him on occasion. And also my current partner at the time, my boyfriend who was living in New York, because it affects them as well. So I think it's very important to check in with them. Like, how are you doing? What do you need from me? If you're not in the physical or emotional, mental space to help your partner, reach out to a friend of theirs, which I did. I reached out to Steven's best friend, like, "Hey, Doug, can you check in on him? Because this is heavy for him," or maybe seek counsel for them, or suggest a therapist, or do some of the legwork for them. Say, "Okay, I have an appointment for you set up for you to speak to this person," or suggest them to visit, yoga, or remind them they need to take care of themselves too. And just, or to seek out support, whatever that looks like. Because I think that's very important, especially when you're dealing with a family unit too, because they're trying to keep it together for the kids, but who's taking care of them? So I think that's something that we need to. And I still check in with Steve. I remember, 2 years ago, I had another little scare. I don't know how many years ago it was. And I remember him saying to me, he's like, "I still can't believe that you went through this. I wish it happened to me." So when he said that to me, I knew that he was still internalizing. And I just had a breast MRI the other day. So I know that still brings up stuff and fear for him. So when I give him the results, he's like just as relieved as I am, right?
Yeah.
Because it affects him too. So I think that's very important for whoever is going through cancer and listening right now. And if you don't have the ability or want to do this, even if it's with an ex-partner, check in with one of their loved ones or friends or family. Say, "Can you please check in with her or him, and find out what they need." So, what kind of support they need during this time.
Yeah, I found something similar. So, and when I was going through my first diagnosis, it was during the heart of COVID. So my husband, Jason, he's incredibly supportive, and he's really also one of those just needs to be done. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do it no matter what it is. I'll make it happen. I'll drive to the city and back, and I'll get you, and I'll go here, and I'll do there, and I'll do, and I'll do, and I'll do. And I said to him, "Where are all your friends?" And most of them had sort of disappeared. It was really interesting to me. I had people texting me and checking on me and sending me messages, but there was 1 or 2 of his friends that would reach out to him, but it was really just very few. And I felt, how sad is that he didn't have that support and that people weren't thinking about him in that way, that they weren't worried about him. And he like couldn't express himself and like what he was going through at the time, because all he could think about was all of the tasks and things that needed to be done of like getting me to my appointments and taking care of the kids and managing all of the things. And, it wasn't until like I was in the clear that then again, we were like, wow, I really can't believe that we have survived this together and we've been through all of these things. And then even just last year, he had a brain aneurysm. And so the roles were reversed. And I was like, oh my God, all of a sudden I feel what it's like to be the other person that's there, and you're trying to be the support system and like stay strong and not show the emotions and like make them feel like there's a safe place and that they're held and all of those things. And it's really hard being on the other side. And I kind of understood how much support that person needs and how meaningful it is to get a check-in and to get someone to say, hey, how are you doing? Do you need to talk about this? Do you want to share what's going on with you? And just even having a few minutes to tell them to think about it. Because like when you're in the middle of it, you kind of check out of it. You're like, okay, let me take all those emotions and feelings and put them in this box and like lock it up. And like, I can't look at it right now because I just have to be the rock, and I'm going to be the rock. So yes, you're right. Just checking in on that person.
Creating that safe space for them to be vulnerable, because men tend to hold those feelings in, internalize them. But also there's many people, as we know, not just, when I was first diagnosed, there was a lot of friends that disappeared. A lot of people don't know how to address or navigate a friend or loved one's diagnosis. It's hard. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. So they just, they disappear.
It's true. I experienced that, but I also had lots of people that were there for me. So it minimized that for me. But I was thinking because they're guys. It's hard for guys. It's hard for them to express emotion. They don't know what to say. So they just kind of pull back. And then, slowly people started coming back around and being in his life again. And, he was like, okay, just like letting him in. I think I held a grudge more than he did for some of those people that weren't there for him.
Yeah. Me too, for sure. But yeah, I think it's very important to do those check-ins to see like how they're doing, because again, it affects everybody.
Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of The Space Between. If this show brought you comfort or a sense of community, I'd love for you to subscribe and share it with anyone who might need it too. You can join the conversation on Instagram at thespacebetween_cancer.family and head to amoryKibler.com for more resources designed to support parents navigating cancer. Just remember, you're never alone. This podcast is here as a companion on your journey towards healing, growth, and connection.